Welcome everybody to today's program, and today, as most know, I've been building a green box Nobler from scratch for Classic this year, and been working on about 8 days now. Been building it on my time off that I have, and what happened is the set of plans I got didn't have a layout or drawing for landing gear, so you figure, well, you're kind of stuck or whatever, or you can just bend it out of your imagination. What I did is I contacted some, on the forum asking for help, and somebody sent me a detailed drawing of the Nobler landing gear, and I thank you very much. I didn't expect to get such a good detailed drawing of the gear, and today we're going to lay out and build this set of gear. Now I have to transpose these measurements to a sheet of paper and make that into a physical piece, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So let's get to it. First thing you're going to need is a piece of paper that you can transfer the measurements to. What I did here is I taped it down to my grid, and I'm going to mark out the center line of the drawing. All the lines are going to go off this center line instead of just starting at the end. So if you had looked at the plan set that I got on the internet, it was 1.2 across the top. So split the difference and measure over from the center line each side for a total of 1.2. Of course, instead of 1.2, I just made it 1.25 inches to make it easy. I just rounded up to the even numbers. 1.6 became 1.5, etc. Then measured the total distance, or the height of the total gear, and we're going to make the ground line, so to speak, on the bottom so it's parallel to that top line. I used my building grid so that I had another line to measure from. So I'm not measuring from the paper, I'm measuring from the actual grid. Now I drew a straight line, and this is where the ground would represent, or the bottom legs of the wire. It's fairly self-explanatory what I'm doing here. Just make an accurate representation of what you have. And we're not building watches, so if you bend the gear, which I'm going to show you how to bend the gear, and you're a few thousandths off, or maybe 64th off or whatever, that's not a problem. You can always adjust for it. Here again, I'm just transposing the numbers that I see on the picture over to the drawing that I have here. Now, in order to get these angles right, you don't use an angle meter, you just use the measurements. So at your starting point, where I think was 5.5 or 5, I don't remember exactly. I'm measuring up from the point on the corner till it touches the line on the upright, and that's the correct angle. So now we have the angle of one side of the gear, and just duplicate that on the other side. That way there's no need for protractors or squares or anything. You're just using the measurements to get your correct angles. I took a piece of 1/8 wire and kind of traced a pattern out, which is not really necessary. Because basically what we're using this drawing for is just a way to make a mark on the 1/8" wire. So now I'm drawing the second line over. You could measure it either way, it doesn't much matter. Sorry about not being able to see through my shoulder, but that's what happens when you don't have a cameraman. And this pattern here is just used to give us accuracy when bending these up. It's not a big deal, as you'll see here in a minute when I start bending the wire. It goes very quickly. It took about 5 minutes to bend up these wires. Now remember, I'm not like Brodak, the guys at Brodak that bend these gears all day long either. And now the 2 legs on the bottom. And we'll go over to the bending table. So take up the paper and move it to the bending table. I left out one important point. What you're going to do is you're going to transfer this drawing onto your wire. I use a black felt tip marker to mark where the bends are. So here it ran off the paper, but I just made the leg where the wheel attaches 1.5 inches. We can always cut it off. It would be very hard to put it on. So I left plenty because I'm going to run the 2.5-inch balloon wheels on this that are rather wide. So 1.5 inches. And then take that mark and go from point to point and make your next mark, and then just keep going around the drawing until you come out on the other side where all the marks are on your wire. It's actually pretty simple once you see how it's done. The next mark. And the last mark right there. And then of course it's 1.5 inches to the end. And I use my Nip-X compound cutters to cut that wire. But I don't cut the wire yet. You use the longest piece of wire you can get as a lever to assist you in bending the wire. Because 1/8" piano wire is pretty stout, at least with this bender that I have. Next, get your vise with your wire bender in it, and you're going to take these black marks and you're going to use that as the apex. That's where I touch the bending wire. I use that black mark to touch the post, every one. I just eyeball the angles to begin with. You get pretty good at angles and things after time. And then you can check it against your drawing to make sure that you do have the correct angle. We've overbent it a little bit. We'll bend it back straight when the job is done. Next, come to the next mark. Of course, I have to turn the fixture around a little bit here. so I can get a good bend on it. And I go around in a clockwise way. I start at the first one and proceed round clockwise to the end. You probably could start in the middle and go out. I mean, that's not really important. But the important thing is to keep the wire on the same plane. Notice that I got my left hand on the landing gear leg wire to hold it parallel to the bench. Otherwise, your wire will come out all cattywampus. You want it all on the same plane. Here, not only have I repositioned the camera, I've also readjusted the fixture so that I can get a more comfortable bend on things. But you notice I'm going around in that clockwise rotation. And just move it to the next mark. Yep, we got to make sure that we got enough bend on it. I'm holding this parallel to the bench so that it's all on the same plane. A 90-degree turn. 90s are easy. We're not going to worry about adjustments until after the gear is bent. At least I don't. It's been quite a while since I've been up any landing gear. And when I say quite a while, I would say, or any landing gear like this, I would say it's been 25 years since I've used a wire landing gear of this type. Of course, all my PA models have wire landing gear, but they're separate gear. It's not a continuous piece of wire like this. You'll notice there's a slight twist in it. Don't worry about it. We'll get it out at the end. Out of the fixture. And around to the last turn of the gear. This whole job, including drawing the pattern, is under 20 minutes. Check it against the pattern, make sure the angles are close and correct. If they're not, make any adjustments. Here I'm twisting the wire to get it parallel. Just eyeball it. There's no need for micrometers or anything. And as long as it's close, you're in there. I've removed the wire bending fixture from the vise so that I can clamp the gear in the vise to make them perfect. And this adjustment takes just a very few moments to get it exactly the same as your pattern. We're back over at the layout bench now. We're going to check our work, make sure that it's relatively close to the pattern that we made. And when I say relatively close, if it's within a 16th or so, you're fine. Those were my Knipex compound wire cutters. They're just like a mini bolt cutter, and they cut through 1/8-inch wire amazingly easy, which wire cutters do not. I don't know how many guys have tried to cut through 1/8" piano wire, but it's difficult. Even the compound cutters give me a little fit, but we got it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial on how to bend landing gear wire. There isn't anything very hard about any of this stuff that we do. All it takes is a little bit of practice, and if you don't know how to do something, get the information how to do it, because if it becomes too hard, you're not doing it right. It's really simple. So until the next tutorial, fair winds, tight line. See ya!